Hi, my name is Pratiksha and I'm the founder at Learneca. India today is one of the most populated country in the world with more than 136 crore people, which is approximately 5 times the American population. With a median age of 28, it has one of the youngest population and the largest workforce in the world. However, even though India is people dense, it is extremely talent scarce. Most of the graduates today are unemployed, whereas companies, both international and local, are hungry for quality talent, both for local consumption as well as offshoring consumption, and this hunger of them remains completely unfulfilled. Now, there are three important reasons for this. Reason number one that we have is unaligned education. So, today in school, whatever they teach are completely methods that are completely irrelevant or outdated. For example, let's say if you're learning coding, then they might be teaching you some language that is completely irrelevant and out of date, whereas some what's working in the market is not actually being taught at schools. Now, online courses are actually trying to address this, but it actually lacks the hands-on approach. For example, Udemy and all the other companies, they have a lot of courses, but they lack the hands-on approach required for the perfect learning retention. Records show that only 6% of people who begin a course finish a particular course. And as Benjamin Franklin once said, tell me and I forget, teach me and I remember, and involve me and I learn. And this is something that private institutes are doing, but they're extremely expensive for the Indian market, and they're only located in metro cities, big cities, and not accessible to everyone. So all in all, they are just accessible by an extremely small fraction of population. Now, how we are trying to solve this particular problem is that at Learneca, we are teaching students inline, in-demand education with real hands-on exposure at zero upfront fee. And everything that we're doing is completely online, so it's accessible to everyone pan India, and eventually we can do it on a pan global basis as well. And now the question again that you have is, if we are collecting zero upfront fee, then how do we monetize? The answer for that is we collect fees from students salary once they are placed. So let's say a student comes into us, we take them into the course, we train them for 3 months, and after those 3 months, once they are placed, out of those salaries, that is how we collect our fees. So on a global parallel, I think the best example that we can resonate with us is we are Lambda School, but for digital marketing and much more affordable. Now I'll be giving you on how the competitive landscape looks like, at least in the Indian context. So first things first, when it comes to digital marketing, there's no other player in the market at this point of time, and we are the only player in, as you can see clearly in the competitive quadrant. In coding, there are a few players, but they are extremely expensive. So we charge, our fees is anywhere between 48,000 rupees, which is about 650 US dollars, wherein when it comes to Indian startups catering to coding, they're charging anywhere between 3 lakh to 30 lakh rupees, which is approximately 40,000 US dollars, or about starting from 4,000 US dollars to 40,000 US dollars. Now, what exactly is our USP? Our USP is pretty straightforward. We are someone who are extremely cost effective, and while other companies are charging, as I mentioned here, that all the other companies, they are charging about anywhere between 3 lakh to 30 lakh rupees, which is about 4,000 to 40,000 US dollars. We are able to provide these services to students at extremely cost effective rates, and the fee that we have here is 650 US dollars, or 48,000 Indian rupees. Now let's have a look at the market size. So when it comes to market size, as you can see here, there hasn't been any official data catering to the market size, but remote work in itself is something that's the future. At least 40 to 60% of companies today have gone completely remote, to at least partially remote. And this chart clearly explains how different countries are adopting to remote work, with US being the highest on the chart. Then you have United Kingdom, Germany, and overall also you can see that this is the trend, and remote work is the future, and the market is going to grow even further. In 1998, China realigned its education system to make it a manufacturing hub, and today that is why one of the reason it is the factory of the world. So anything that you have in your room, taking from furniture to computer parts to household items, pretty much 90% or 95% of the items are actually made in China. And in this run, Alibaba was the greatest beneficiary, being the go-to supplier for all the China-made items in the world. Similarly, with the largest workforce and youngest population in the world, India has the potential to be the world's office. Now, what our goal is to realign education, and by doing so, we intend to be India's powerhouse for remote workforce globally. Now obviously this is an idea that looks great on the paper, but at the end of the day, ideas are worth a dozen a dime. It's the execution where the real challenge is. At the moment, at this given point of time, we are ready with PMF with early salaries coming in, and we have placed two students, and we'll be having a few more students being placed while you have a look at this video. So far we have been pretty stealth, but once we get on the radar, we'll be exposed to great risks of concept hijacking as well as copycat models. However, we have all the necessary risk aversion strategies in place to cushion ourselves against those risks. But in order to execute them, we are on a lookout to raise 5 million US dollars to safeguard against all of the risk by having multiple modes in places. So now I'll be giving you a walkthrough on the current modes that we have. So starting with the first mode is marketing in itself. So I have been a marketing enthusiast and I love growth hacking by nature. So in the product in itself, we have been able to build in a lot of viral loops and multiple touch points across and our entire student journey. And some of these are possible to clone, but some of them are not easy to clone. An example for that would be we includes parents as a part of the course. For example, let's say if someone wants to get an extension on an assignment, we actually include the parents. So they have to record a video, and that is how we keep parents on the loop. So this also becomes a shared responsibility and helps in course creation, and parents eventually they become a great source of word of mouth. So that's thing number one in as for when it comes to viral loops. Other thing that we have is as a part of the course, students are exposed to YouTube to create YouTube videos and social media posts as marketing exercises, which we eventually publish on our YouTube channel as well as our social media channels. And during the mock interview of our students, we record the interviews and then publish it on YouTube as a part of our content creation strategy. So all of these examples that you're seeing at this point of time, they are real-time examples, and these are screenshots from our real-time batches. At the same time, we are also inspired by Cred. Cred is an Indian company, if you know about it. So what we try to do is we try to send across cakes to all of the students once they get placed with our logo and everything in it. So this also helps in garnering the word of mouth, because obviously if people would be having cake, then they would be inviting five other people, and then eventually it would create a word of mouth like why the cake has come in, and then they would say that I've got placement from Learneca, and that is how it would increase the word of mouth. And if they proceed further and if they share it on social media, then that would be another exposure that we'll be getting as well. So these are some of the marketing loops that we have built in at this point of time. Currently, we have more than, I mean, these are just like 4 or 5 marketing loops. Currently, we have more than 15 marketing loops. And internally, we plan every day, we plan to come up with new organic ways. So in the long run, the plan that we have is to not only be an academy, but become an academy media company. To concrete this even further, we are also looking to strategically acquire an abundant student-based company at a distressed sale. So the prices that we're getting are extremely attractive prices. More on that I'll be able to brief you on if we get on a call. Now talking about operations, our operations have been completely automated and seamless with minimal human intervention. The entire intake starting from top to bottom have been automated, wherein our competitors have at least 3 to 6 manual touch points. Now this is something that really helps in scaling, because the more the number of automation, the less friction you have while scaling. Some of the examples that we have is we have automated webinars. So what we actually do is we have about let's say if we have about a 1 hour and 30 minute session, out of that pretty much 45 minutes we have is an automated session, and after that we have live discussion wherein we use different interactive and different interaction tactics to make sure the students are engaged enough. Another thing that we use is automated voice calls. So these voice calls go out to the students. So let's say if they have any submissions today, then they proceed and they'll be getting calls that so these would be automated calls wherein they would be reminded that today is an today is in submission and please proceed and submit. Similarly, also before the webinar, since at the end of the day it's an online course, at times students forget that you have a webinar going on. So what we do is 15 minutes to 30 minutes prior to the session, we make automated voice calls to all of the students. And at the same time, when it comes to communication itself, we use automated Slack all across. So we have automated reminders sent across to the students. Now talking about the finance in itself, we are a company that's extremely frugal and asset light. I mentioned that we use a lot of automated tactics, and for that we use automated tools, right? So for those automated tools, one question you will be having is that we spend a lot of money on tools and everything else, but That's not the case. We have a lot of tools, but we are in agreement with all of our vendors that whatever money that we have paid is done and dusted. Now we don't really pay any extra fee on the tools that we have. Again, more details on this would be given out to you once we get on a call. And so this way we have been managing ourselves to be extremely frugal. Now, talking about sales or HR partners or hiring partners, we are ideating some moat on that front as well, wherein we are in talks with one of the virtual conference software to create the world's largest co-working space, virtual co-working space. Now, talking about another moat, we are also looking at culture as a moat. So at this point of time, Google and SpaceX and all of these big companies have been able to attract the best talent. And digging deep into the matter, we realize that in all industries, the biggest moat any company can possibly have is people and the culture. So we have been remote first since our inception. That was way back before this COVID thing happened, and have realized that getting great talent is a big war. Locally, all the great talent are taken away by big companies. So what we do is we actually, at this point of time, we have been completely remote, right? So we try to go pick up talent from small cities where they don't really have any opportunities, and then we train them and then mold them into high performing individuals, and then that is how we train our employees. On top of that, we are trying to build getting inspiration from Google and researching a player psychology. We are trying to create culture as a mode to attract the best talent in the long run. Moreover, if quality talent is not available, as I said, we believe in taking across raw talent and then exposing them to sophisticated work styles to mold them into a great team player. And another thing that we are also looking at is ecosystem as a mode. So Apple today uses ecosystem as a mode. So let's say if anyone wants to migrate from iOS to Android, it would be extremely difficult for them to leave because all of their data, all of their settings and everything would be synced on the iCloud, and leaving that would be a great friction. So we are trying to build a similar ecosystem by ensuring that learning happens not only during the course but also after that, when we will be having these students as a part of our community, and then we'll be providing once a month mentors industry expert sessions, and then we'll be also providing them productivity solutions and something like that, through which they would be bound to the community and they'll remain in the ecosystem. And the next thing that we'll be using is funnel as a mode. And this is something that's pretty interesting. So today in India, there's a company called Tata, which has Tata Salt. So most of the shopkeepers, they have Tata Salt, even though they don't really have any great margins on it. For example, let's say if you are selling worth, it hardly has about 0.5 to 1% of profit in there. But the question is, why do they have Tata Salt in the first place in their stores? Is that because Tata Salt is something that's a necessity, and just for Tata Salt, a customer or a client would come into the store, and then once they are into the store, then they can upsell, cross sell a lot of different things. So similarly, we are taking a same approach here. Any company, let it be big size, small size, medium size, everyone needs digital marketing in their portfolio, digital marketing or marketing talent in their talent pool. So what we are trying to do here is we are trying to act Tata Salt here by having excellent digital marketing talent pool. So let's say if it's any company, then they would definitely walk up to us, because that's a necessity for any company. Let's say if it's a small company, big company, whatever size it is, every company needs marketing and digital marketing talent. Now, on top of that, not every company would require a coding team. For example, let's say if it's a small cake shop, they wouldn't really require a coding team. But let's say if it's any company, they would actually need digital marketers for their social media presence and a marketing team in general. So what I'm trying to say here is that we are trying to act here as Tata Salt. So let's say once we have all the companies coming to us, then we can do a lot of cross sell, upsell, and possibilities are endless. I'll be showcasing you all the possibilities in the upcoming slide. So first things first, what we can do is we can move to parallel domains. So at this point of time, digital marketing is our expertise, but pretty much we are there with about 80 or 90% of the process. 20% is still left. Once we have this process refined and perfect, then we will be taking it across multiple streams as well. A good example for that would be Amazon. When it started, it just began with one product, that was books, and they made sure that they become extremely good with books. And then once they were good with books, then they moved across to multiple domains. The same thing that we are looking to do here. So we are starting with digital marketing as a domain, and once we build our expertise in that, then we'll be going on parallel streams like I mean, I don't really have that data at this point of time. It would really depend on what the market situation is looking like, but we can have multiple parallel streams as well. And another thing that we can do is upsell. So the good thing about a skill in itself is that whatever you learn today, there's a very good chance that 2 years from now it would be something that would be obsolete, or at least you would be requiring an upskilling on yourself. So let's say if today I know basic digital marketing, then after 2 or probably 1 year, I'll be requiring advanced digital marketing modules. So this is something that we can upsell on the students too. We can also do some cross selling. For example, a good example for that would be, let's say, uh, if any, so there are hard skills and soft skills that a company usually looks at. So hard skills is something that we can offer as a core offering. On top of that, we can also do some cross selling, like how to be productive, and then how to I mean, there are possibilities are endless. So one thing would be how to be productive, and then we can also, what we can do is we can keep them updated with the latest trends. So let's say Google SEO, the algorithm keeps on changing, so we can keep some update courses or something like that, which would be helpful in a cross selling as well. In the long run, we can also build a platform similar like Upwork. Once we have a good amount of uh, data in terms of students, once we have good amount of students on us, then we can also build a platform like Upwork. We can also do something like Paytm is a PayPal, think of it as PayPal. So what we can do is, so here what we are trying to look is that most of the Indian talent would be working for overseas companies, right? So in that process, they would be remitting, overseas company would be remitting money to India. So we can have something like a wallet wherein that money would be coming to us first, and it would be stored on our wallet, and then eventually students would be able to take it out. So now the benefit over here is that we'd be having a lot of capital on us, because students would be having their money with us. But obviously, this is just one idea. These are possibilities. The technical and the regulatory feasibility is something that needs to be considered. And what we can also do is we can have physical workspaces in small cities. For example, let's say if a small city in India has a lot of students coming out of Learneca, then what we can do is we can have a dedicated workspace there for all of our students, and we can also have a training center or something like that. Obviously, all of these are possible ideas, but again, as I mentioned, possibilities are endless here. Now, talking about the team, at this point of time, we are only two team members. So I'm the founder, and along with me is Pramit Verma, who's been a technical head. Currently, he's working at Sheg as a software development executive, and he's the one who more looks into technology and operations. I'm the one who's more into marketing and product. I have been a part of VR Growth Hackers, which is a European firm, back in 2020, and currently I used to work with them on a freelance basis. And at that point of time, also I was working on Learneca, but then eventually I thought that it's better to have a full time focus here. And so, talking about our past experience, we don't really have extremely strong past experience somewhere else. Now, that in itself has been an advantage to us because it helps us thinking a lot of things in terms of first principles. For example, the entire process that we have built up here is something that we have been able to build up because we think with a different thought process to begin with. What happens with a lot of companies is that if they have fixed structures, they are molded that way. The good benefit about us is that we think everything that we think is pretty much on a first principles basis, and this is something that really helps us in this is something that has really helped us in building this unique selling proposition, like keeping the fees extremely low and cost affordable to all of the students, wherein others are charging anywhere between to 3 lakh to 30 lakh rupees. And I'd like to tell you one more thing is that by default, obviously, a few things that you can't actually see, but I'd like to mention here is that we are someone who are extremely growth driven. Every day we just try to see if there's any possible solution that we can grow 1% every day. And as you know, the power of compounding, how that happens over a years, you can actually proceed and see how powerful compounding can become. So that's one of the key things that I like to mention when it comes to growth. So we both of us are extremely growth driven individuals, personally as well as professionally. And this is something that obviously once you will be talking to us, you'll be getting to know a lot of things about us. Another thing that we have taken into consideration since day one is that whatever we have built in consideration with scale. So let it be whatever that we do, we think on a perspective of scale. So let's say if we are implementing the software, let's say, then we would be thinking that is this something that we should be able to handle well if we scale, and if we have a lot of users tomorrow, and only if the answer is yes, we proceed with it. So all of these things, obviously we won't be able to put it up on our profile, but all of these things I just want to give you a glimpse on how we think and what our what mental approach we take and we have taken so far into our company. And why us? So again, as I mentioned, that with us comes a get very good well-rounded team experience. So what happens when you have a very small team is that when it comes to marketing, I have good expertise on marketing and product. So that is why I'm in a position to build inbuilt virality that I mentioned you on the slides behind. Pramit has good experience on technology and marketing, so he also has good amount of knowledge. That is where it helps us in getting data driven marketing in the first place. And then what also helps us in doing this is that product and technology, if we have this expertise, what it helps us is doing is that it helps us creating a product that has a scalable infra. And if we have a combination of all of these things, then what we see is a superb skill set of growth that would help us in scaling. Now, on top of that, we also have another moat, but for that, I would like you guys to get in touch with us. And that is something that's a little sensitive in nature, so I won't be putting it up on the pitch itself. So, for that, I would like to get in touch with you. And so, this is pretty much our entire fundraise. And again, I would like to mention you a few other things on us is that you won't be able to see it on our resume or our profiles, but a few things that we are hardcore believer is thing number one is we are extremely data driven. That's thing number one that we have. Second thing that we have is we believe in rapid experimentation. So week in, week out, we try to throw in a lot of ideas. A lot of ideas they work, a lot of ideas they don't work. But the ideas that actually work, they in the long run they'll be giving us big wins. And the third thing that we believe is that we believe in reverse engineering a lot of things. So this entire business that we created, we actually reverse engineer something else, and then from there on we thought on a first principle basis like how can we better this process, and that is where we are today. Now in terms of investors, I'll just now, since a lot of companies, especially VCs, they have an investment approach. In the same way, we also have an approach wherein we have set up preferences on whom we would like to work along with in the first place. Obviously, these are preferences that we have, and these are not necessities. I'll be listing them all to you one by one. First things first is at this point of time, we are an extremely small team. And so at this point of time, we would like to onboard or work along with someone who has some affiliation or who provides lab service, startup lab studio services. Because again, as I mentioned, during the scale phase, we'll be requiring robust team with industry-wide experience. And the second thing that we have is to a good extent, successful company is a result of successful team, of which founders and co-founders are crucial, and so is their mental health. So if there's someone who can actually get us into the States via the US startup visa or through ways of one HB, then that would be another preference that we'll be having at. And along with that, we'll also be getting exposure to the startup ecosystem in the States. So that is another added advantage. And uh, finally, talking about valuation, our preferences on the valuation would be someone who would be taking valuation on a further stage. So at this point of time, it's extremely difficult for us to value to provide valuations to us. So we prefer to give discounts to people on our future valuation. And finally, I would like to close this by saying that when it comes to equity, I'm extremely flexible with equity, and I'm not someone who would stick by along with my equity. As a matter of fact, I have granted across some ESOPs to my teammate as well. But I'd be willing to go out as long as the value is being provided in exchange. So yes, that's one of my key preferences, and I would like to know that I'm someone who's extremely flexible in nature. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to consider valuations. I'm ready to sit down and negotiate. I'm not sticking along with my equity, but the equity should bring in that good amount of value in the first place. And that's all that I have for right now. I'll be looking forward to hear back from you. So if you wish to reach back from me, then you would be able to reach back to me on this particular email that you have. So that's prtk@learneca.com. And along with this, I'll be also attaching a slide deck, which would only be having the slides. And I'll be looking forward to talk to you. Thanks for your time. Appreciate. Have a good day. Cheers.